All right, I want to bring in my all-star panel. Ryan Walker, the Executive Vice President of Heritage Action. My old colleague at Newsmax who went on to OAN is now leading Turning Point. This is in itself is unbelievable. The Turning Point White House correspondent. You've seen her all over the internet, Monica Page, and our good friend, Tony Katz. He is the host of the Tony Katz Show and the Indiana chief White House correspondent for us out there. He covers all things Indiana, all things white. I mean, it's what Tony Katz does for us out there in Indiana. It's unbelievable. Guys, all of you, welcome. Good to see you. Monica, that's pretty cool. I mean, just the idea, we talked in the past about Heritage and the Daily Signal getting in the briefing room. You started with OAN, I think, and now Turning Point has its own correspondent. That in itself is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I became the White House correspondent for OAN. Was doing that for, I'd say, about a year or so, give or take. And then I left to do Turning Point Frontlines, where they're literally on the front lines at any sort of protest or any sort of demonstration. They are on the ground there. And now I'm here at the White House. I figure, they could use somebody who's here at a Trump White House. A lot of fun.
It's kind of cool that we're talking about the White House because last night President Trump was on Laura Ingraham at Fox. I want to show you guys, he showed off the new Oval Office in only a way that Trump could have decorated in style. Take a look.
This is the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
And they ask that this be done. It's never been up. It's been in the vaults for many, many decades. And they said, we have to do something like drapes or something because the light eventually affects it. And it's very cool.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that great? Just went up yesterday.
Wow.
I know. All right, Tony Katz, I don't know how you got it decorated there in the studio. I see the big TK behind you. Look, this guy, that Oval Office, people talk about what desk or what rug the president is putting in. When you look around at these videos and see what he's done in the Oval Office, this is like he is in his element in the second term, decorating, putting the Declaration of Independence in there. He's got a big thing of Reagan. It just makes me feel good to see him enjoying the office.
So behind him, he's got the Declaration, which admittedly, that's stunning to see. I don't care who you are. Well, maybe some people like Representative Jasmine Crockett or members of the squad wouldn't appreciate it. That's a breathtaking thing to see. And then if you turn around and you look outside the office, there's his mugshot. America's fantastic. It is an incredible kind of 1-2 punch. But it is, I think for a lot of Americans, they do put stock into these things. Here is somebody who appreciates America's founding as opposed to hiding what America is, appreciates those who did the work as opposed to hiding the bust of Winston Churchill and hiding this and hiding that. I do think there is a message that he's trying to send. I think it's going to get found when other events happen in the Oval, which brings us back to the Oval as a concept. I don't know if I'm the only person who ever noticed this, but Barack Obama, 8 years, never Oval Office addresses, never conversations in the Oval. It's the seat of power. It is the ultimate seat of power. And Trump utilizes it and wields it extremely well. Obama never used it, and Biden used it sparingly. They utilized that kind of fake Oval, whatever it was, kind of set they were building. So this matters to Trump. This is a huge part of his identity as president.
Ryan, that's funny. I never thought Tony Katz bringing his A game today because I hadn't thought about that. I mean, Biden used a fake Oval Office. Trump understands what a home court advantage that Oval Office is, both in terms of meetings and just visually. It's not just stunning, but it's this level of significance. And when you see it on TV, you stop. What's he saying? It's got to be important. It's the president, the Oval Office.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. I mean, look at his first 4 weeks in office. He had how many world leaders come into the Oval Office to discuss really important matters? He's already had a roaring fire behind him as scenery to showcase the power and scope of the United States. And it's actually interesting. The Oval is actually pretty small. When you go and see it in person, it is a small room. But I think that smallness and compactness brings in the weight and gravity of the conversations that are happening in that room. So I think it's been fantastic. What better way to usher in the second Trump administration than to have someone in the Oval that cares about it and wants to use it for its purpose.
Monica, in terms of you guys and your access, I know Caroline Levitt's opened up the the pool, if you will, because obviously, I mean, to Ryan's point, that it's not that big, right? Are you guys able, from a Turning Point standpoint, and you doing your job, to get in there as well?
We're working on it, that's for sure. I mean, we already have access to Trump surrogates coming up and down Pebble Beach every single day, which is already huge when it talk about access. I mean, the past 4 years, we'd be lucky if we even got called on by Karine Jean-Pierre, and even saw any sort of staff from the Biden administration even step foot on Pebble Beach. So, I mean, to talk about access, this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more to come. We're less than 3 months out. Just imagine the next 4 years. And you want to talk about how President Trump, he always does everything with intention. And that even translates to his decor, whether it's the Oval Office or other areas of the White House. Everything that he does is with intention and class. And that speaks through really his style and how he does things with this country as well. So it's definitely going to be an exciting 4 years for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see him take a personal interest, whether it's the Kennedy Center or decorating the Oval Office. Like, that's not normal. But I do want to move on to policy for a second, because the president had this call with President Zelensky of Ukraine yesterday. And for all of the media hand-wringing, they both put out these statements that said, hey, it went well. We're moving towards peace. And this gets back to something that I've been harping on for weeks on end, guys, which is everyone worries about the process, right? Who was where, who got called first, whether or not the Europeans were involved, as opposed to the outcome. And we saw yesterday, President Zelensky put out a statement saying, hey, I appreciate what President Trump's doing. I welcome this path to peace. And no one wants to talk about it. And I don't mean to liken it to Elon's rocket, but I think it can't go unnoticed. Biden leaves office and leaves astronauts in air. No one says a damn thing. Elon sends a rocket up and brings them home. And no one on the morning news wants to mention that it was President Trump and his relationship with Elon Musk and the fact that Elon just happens to have a rocket. You know, who else has got a rocket, by the way? It's just like, does anyone got a rocket? I got some astronauts. And that they came home. No one says a word about who did it. And then you see this thing with Zelensky yesterday moving towards peace. And no one wants to talk about the fact that not only did it happen on Biden's watch, he did nothing to solve peace. And here we see Trump actually getting it done. Now, I don't know where it ends up, but I'm saying, like, they literally don't want to give him any credit for the ball getting moved forward, Tony Katz.
Not giving credit is name of the game. You know, we go back to this idea that Biden stranded these astronauts, and some people are saying, how dare you say that? That's not true. Scott Kelly, the brother of the Senator Mark Kelly, on Fox News, said that there was always a capsule there that they could have taken at any time. That there was a capsule there that could have taken these two astronauts who were supposed to spend 8 days and spent 9 months home, doesn't mean they were allowed to use it. So the argument of stranded does actually hold. What we get is Joe Biden didn't want to give Elon Musk a win by asking for the help. That's very strange. It's strange when your politics means you'll let people just stay floating in space. That is weird. And the reason people reacted so much to this capsule landing in the ocean the other day is that the idea of leaving somebody in space, the idea of leaving someone behind, regardless of your socioeconomic class, regardless of anything else, that's anathema to the American citizen. It's what we don't
No, you don't leave anyone behind.
We've got a real visceral opposition to such a thing. It's true culturally, it's true economically, it's true across a spectrum of Americans, and that's what Biden did. As for not giving credit, if you take a look at Representative Jasmine Crockett, second time I bring her up today, she's doing this hashtag Tesla takedown. Her birthday's coming up, and what she wants for her birthday is to take down Elon Musk. Do you know how weird that is? Never mind how violent of a statement that is. Most people for their birthday want cake. That's what they're looking for.
Oh, I love cake.
She wants to take down Elon Musk. This anger, this hatred, this vitriol, it is part of their existence, and you can't give somebody credit for doing a good thing when by doing so you may take away what has become your religion.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Listen, one of the big things that happened today is this dismantling of the Department of Education. And I want to get into like the words and all this stuff. But first and foremost, Ryan, this is something that, like, from a heritage standpoint, like, getting rid of and pushing not, and I don't use the word dismantling. I mean, the bottom line is the Department of Education was a travesty to begin with, because it took something that's a state and local issue and tried to federalize it. And it added bureaucracy and regulations that got in between teachers and parents educating children. And this, to me, cannot be overstated what a big win this is for the federal government.
Oh, it's huge. And it's huge for American children and American families. Since the Department of Education was created, school and student performance has gone down consistently, year over year. And we are failing as a country to educate our youth on serious matters, STEM education, AI, all of these big questions are completely bungled. And to your point, they layer on layer after layer of bureaucracy to our child's education, and it has nothing to do with the ultimate outcome. Instead, we're making basically residents of Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. and some suburbs around Maryland pretty darn wealthy based on their high salaries and incompetence. And so ending the Department of Education, it doesn't mean cutting off funds to students. It doesn't mean that the schools are going to start crumbling or that curriculums are going to fundamentally change. It means empowering states and parents and communities that have and know what is best for their child and their children's education needs around the country. It, to your point, puts the decision-making back in the states and allows for democracy and our great republic to continue to function, and for parents and voters and constituents to be able to voice their opinion and change it in rapid time, what their children are experiencing in the schools. So this is a great thing. I'm very supportive that Linda McMahon is sort of working herself out of a position or a job. That is a fantastic thing for us as a United States government.
You know, Monica, the thing that's interesting to me is I know you're there on behalf of Turning Point, but you have to hang around with all those liberal press folks. And I was reading the lead up to this, and they use words like Trump is dismantling government. He is attacking they keep talking about what's another one? The wholesale destruction, right? This is, to me, if you care about education, if you care about waste, like the folks that are there behind you at the White House press office, I mean, the press in the press room, not the press office, because those are Trump staffers, but all of these other liberal media folks, like they're almost rooting for bureaucracy and waste to continue. The idea that it's danger or destructive, what he's doing, to me, is the exact opposite. He's actually adding a level of accountability. He's actually trying to make sure that we do better in education, or the entire Doge effort is to make government work better. And yet all of the people in that White House press room almost are cheering for him to fail at this.
Yeah, I mean, it's so wild to me because you hear just that, but also in the briefing room yesterday, these media outlets are shocked that this administration is deporting criminals, and then they're going to worry about the conditions in which these criminals are living in. And it's like, okay, so how about we bring in these criminals so you can see for themselves, read off all of their crimes and see, would you want to take this kind of person in? For some reason, I don't understand why these media members cannot really get a grasp of the truth and what's really happening. Dismantling and just taking down the Department of Education is exactly what I voted for. My mother is a high school English teacher, and she left her union because the union left her first, especially when it came to those COVID vaccine mandates. So when she tells me that she's in favor of this, and there are thousands of other teachers across the country who can't speak out about this exact situation because they are in fear of losing their jobs, perhaps, or in fear of coming under scrutiny, this is exactly the problem. Over $200 billion from the Department of Education has been sent to these woke universities when it could have gone to these small towns that need that money to boost these programs. I mean, how long have you heard the left cry and cry about, oh, we need to fix the education system, we need to fix these inner city schools, and now President Trump is actually doing that, and they still have a problem with this? It's like, no matter what he can do, President Trump, it will never be good enough for these people. And I'm very excited to see, these states actually have the power and these funds to better our education system. And to that point, you want to talk locally as well. I mean, the honors programs have somehow become racist. They've somehow become participation trophies. Just now everybody can somehow become an honors student, and there's no standards anymore to these classes and to these curriculums. So I'm looking forward to seeing our education system become one that can be competitive and one that everyone can actually thrive and succeed in.
Can we just discuss the fact that Monica made a point that I don't think anybody should brush over? You talked about Sean dismantling government, or Ryan, you were, and I'm applauding that. I want government, but I want Article 1, Section 8. But 77 million people, to Monica's point, voted for this. This is exactly what they asked for. And you talk about your fellow press colleagues there at the White House or anywhere else, or people you deal with, Sean, or I don't really have to deal with those people on radio. This is what Americans want, and this is what the press refuses to understand. And I think I would ask the question to Ryan, because I think this is probably Heritage's ballywick. I've been asking the question on radio: if we take a look at an agency, does the agency exist for the value of the citizen, or does it exist to ensure that the agency exists? This, to me, is the test of whether or not an institution should be around. Does it exist to provide value to us, or does it exist to prove that the institution should be around? And I was curious if Heritage does work on either that messaging or has done studies to that point.
Yeah, I think that it's a great question. And I think that's what we've been writing about and trying to educate the American people on. The Democrats are so angry about this stuff because it cuts off the gravy train that has been flowing to them for what we've now discovered at least the last 50 to 60 years. And so whether it be the Department of Education, USAID, or any of the other agencies that this government, this administration is reviewing and thinking about cutting, I think it speaks directly to that point. We have been spending money to buy bureaucrats second homes and beach houses rather than providing for the American people. We have been spending billions on things like international disaster relief when every year we have to take supplemental votes to fund through emergency spending our own disaster relief fund here in the United States. So none of it makes sense. But if you think about it in the sense of these are gravy trains and funding streams that promote and highlight and give value to Democrats and liberals around the world, I think it all starts to make sense. We're $36 trillion in debt. We're spending $1 trillion a year in deficit spending, at least up to $2 trillion in previous years under the Biden administration. This has got to end. It's nonsense. And to everyone's point on this panel, it's what the American people voted for.
Yeah, I don't know why everyone's so surprised by this either. I mean, President Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do in the campaign trail. So I don't know why everyone's clutching their pearls over this next decision. It's what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, but Monica, the thing is, it goes back to your point about your mom, right? And it combines that with what Tony's saying. Like, regardless of what, and I agree with you guys about what we voted for, but just regardless of who is in power, we keep spending more and more money on a problem, okay? So it doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever, right? I looked this up this morning, right? So there are these scores, these global scores about where every country ranks on education. Number 1, Singapore. Number 2, China. Number 3, Japan. Number 4, Taiwan. Number 5, South Korea. And then it keeps going. Canada, Italy, Sweden, Switzerland rather. I'm going down these as we talk. Australia. You know where we are? 15. We spend more money, and especially Tony mentioned the DMV, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. We spend more money in DC than anywhere else per pupil, and no one says, "Gosh, we're not getting any better test scores." That's to me like if you hire anybody and said, "Hey, do a job." Like stack shelves in this grocery store and you walk down the aisle like 10 minutes later and nothing's stacked. You go, hey, dude, you didn't do your job, right? So no matter what it is, I mean, you pick the profession and you spend all of this money on education and our scores go down. Don't you say at some point, regardless of party, regardless of what you voted for, gosh, guys, we're not doing the right thing?
Them? No, I mean, I think part of it is they have a different mathematics, all right, as progressives to what success is. Is the success of the program the bettering of the student, or is the success of the program that everybody's using the proper pronoun? What is the grading system? And the problem is that the progressive left doesn't have the grading system that everyday Americans have. We see the world far differently. They see the world, the argument is the conservative sees the world the way it is. The progressive sees the world the way they want it to be and tries to bend everybody to that will and to that whim. And they have like-minded people and what they value. What matters most is that they've created the government job, not that the government job creates value for the American citizen. And when you then question the job, they say, how dare you? Because it's a true affront to what it is they think matters most. So I think that's the issue, where it's very much conservatives are from Mars, progressives are from Venus. We're a different species altogether in terms of where we see a value. What it turns out is that independents and moderates are much more from Mars than from Venus.
Monica, you mentioned this because about the money, right? And it's not just the K through 12 stuff. Yesterday, President Trump and the administration froze $175 million to the University of Pennsylvania for letting trans athletes compete in women's. Now, the first thought I had to myself was, okay, good. The second thought I had was, what the hell are we spending $175 million at the University of Pennsylvania alone for?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what these are the right questions that people should be asking themselves. I mean, to have men and women's sports, and also for the radical indoctrination of K through 12 when when their brains are sponges at that age and they're very vulnerable to all different kinds of, actions or curriculum, and they're engaging in everything. I mean, these are things people should be talking about and questioning. I actually went over to the Department of Education here in DC just to see when they laid off that around 4,000 employees over there, just to see, if there was any outrage, if anyone's talking about it over there. That building is massive. What are they doing in there? What does the Department of Education actually do? And it's a legitimate question, because I've been asking some of my colleagues here, what have we been doing? What are they doing? Especially the last 4 years and even now. I mean, these cuts are exactly what should be happening. DOGE is doing its work, it's doing its magic, and saving the American people taxpayer dollars.
There's also another element to this that we've been, again, 50, 60 years, we've just not had leadership, it seems, in the White House to go after and look at how the government functions. Elon has made this point a million times that if we practiced the way that we, conduct ourselves in the public sector, in federal government, in the private sector, people would be going to jail. The accounting standards, the way they spend money, the way they account for checks going out the door, these people are violating basic requirements of private industry. And so there's finally someone in the White House who has compassion and caring and wants to fix these issues. And I think the American people are waking up and saying, what have we been living under for the past 60 years?
Yeah.
Living under auto pen.
That's the last.
You finally have somebody that's not an auto pen as a president.
That's a good one. This sort of begs the question, though, that I keep thinking about this. Like Trump cuts, when you notice what he's doing on the Department of Education, like they're very clearly stating, to the extent allowed by law, will kind of attrit the department down, right? And then they're doing this with DOGE. But there's a story in the Hill that I want you guys to weigh in on, because this is something that I've been very outspoken on. And this is what it says. Republican lawmakers who are jubilant about President Trump's flurry of executive orders and actions reshaping the government are staring down a challenge, making those changes last by turning them into law, right? And this is where, so apparently the House Republican Study Committee, which is the largest group of conservatives, is trying to identify some of these things that have to happen that we want to prioritize. And I agree. This is the thing. What has been done can be undone. It's like Elon used the phrase a couple of weeks ago where he said, we got to pull things out by the roots so they don't grow back. And I agree with that. So Ryan, you guys, Tony name checked you guys in terms of the work that Heritage has done for a long time to really talk about issues and priorities. What do we need to lock in? For example, immigration. What do we need to lock in to make sure Democrats can't undo it? God forbid they ever get a majority again.
Yeah, I think about this in terms of the American people and what happened in November and what promises Trump was making on the campaign trail. So defining sex at the federal government needs to be statutorily enshrined by Congress. These are issues that the American people, 80-20, 75-25, they support these issues, right? And so putting Democrats, importantly, you're going to need Democrats on the Senate side to have tough votes on this. We have midterms coming up in 2026. So when I think of this stuff, I think around defining sex, male and female, the official policy of the federal government, DEI, and ridding DEI from the federal government. That was another EO that he issued. We have pieces of legislation with members of Congress that we've been working on for a number of months now to codify these exact issues. Again, going to the American people and saying, promises made, promises kept. And that needs to be the message from the Republican conference in the House and the Senate. And I think it's really important for us in the midterms. We have a chance, despite political pundits, to keep the majority in the House. It's just the map looks very good for us this year. And I think likewise on the Senate side, not only could we maintain our majority in the Senate, but we have a very real chance of growing it.
Oh, 100%.
And this is going to be it's going to be a reflection on Donald Trump's first 2 years and the way that he is going, right? We need to start highlighting these things that get those 70% approval ratings from the American people, the 80% approval rating issues. And so we're working hand in glove with the RSC and a number of other members of the House, rank and file members, to get these things voted on, cleared through the House, and then to the Senate desk so that they can consider them and put people like John Ossoff in the state of Georgia on the record on some of these issues.
And I mean, that whole thing about the Senate looking good for Republicans, if you went to before the 2024 election, that wasn't the case at all. This is really different. And then to see Gary Peters in Michigan and Tina Smith in Minnesota and then Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire all say they're not running, there's opportunity there for Republicans. And I think it tells it's its own kind of story. But you're right that you have to talk about the successes. You have to show the successes. You have to keep getting at it, because if we take a look at Trump and winning those swing states, he often talks about winning the swing states. That's true. But we didn't take the Senate seat in Michigan. We didn't take the Senate seat in Nevada. We didn't take the Senate seat in Arizona. These were incredible. That Sam Brown is not a senator is just a sin from Nevada. Absolutely, that Jackie Rosen was able to stay in the seat. So there's a big difference between Trumpism and Republicanism in the eyes of the voter, where the popularity is. And to your point, Republicans got to work overtime to share, here's what we are doing, here's why it's working for you, and that's why we need even more to be able to get over these progressive hurdles.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.